time for a little bit of truth extracting. Okay, this website right here. Bee blood. Now, people generally are brainwashed to think they judge by color. Oh, you're black or you're white, brown or whatever. But many people in this world are mixed. And just because they have this certain color does not mean that they don't belong to the same, basically the same tribe. So here, Michelle Rob Smith, Bee blood group, Mongolian history. Blood groups and the history of the peoples. Okay, we're going to go skip a few things here, and you could read it all yourself. The nomadic mutation. This first appeared in significant numbers, somewhere around 10 to 15,000 BC. Tail end of the Neolithic period in the area of the Himalayan highlands, now part of present-day Pakistan and India, like the environment conditions which spawned the advent of Group A. Development of blood group B was in large part a response to changes in the environment, but all that. But I kind of doubt this part here about environment changing our blood types, anything. You could read this, and we'll go on. Like it says, it's possible that blood group may be the only group with capabilities to survive in such harsh environment. I'm not saying that everything in this website is truth. There is some truth in here. Group blood B is Semitic blood. Mongolians are Semites. Blood group B Mongolians continued travel northward toward present-day Siberia. They developed different culture depending on herding and emphasizing the use of cultured dairy products. These nomadic people were expert horsemen and wandered extensively all over the Siberian flatlands, the Great Steppes. These nomads must have been compact, tightly knit, and genetically homogeneous. Yes, they were. Study the Turkish tribes. The Turkish invaders, the Muslim invaders. Many Muslims are Semitic. So are many Indians and certain Africans. We'll go continue on here. Okay, this is all about Group B and... Okay, let's see. A recent study using sophisticated polymerase chain reaction (PCR) technology determined the ABO groupings of undried remains of 9 human mummies, which had been discovered at Taklamakan Desert in 1912. Of the 9, 8 were Group B blood type. At various times they penetrated large swaths of Eastern Europe, at one time reaching as far as the gates of Vienna, Austria. The Mongolians were certainly responsible for the introducing gene for blood group B into the Eastern European populations. Of course, because these people invaded the white Europeans and raped the women and their offsprings. Some of them became bee-blooded through the rapings of these invaders. That is why you can find bee blood in some of the Eastern Europeans and less in the Western Europeans. in Asia because it's an Asian blood type. Wandering nomadic societies. Yeah, they have tribes. And what about these tribes in your holy book, the Bible? They were tribes, they were nomadics. They didn't have no civilizations. They went out and plundering. Well, we'll continue. We can read all this. Here we go. In the Middle East, it appears that tribes of Semitic group B nomads may have infiltrated into the pre-existing Neolithic cultures both passively and aggressively. Semitic peoples called the Hyksos. Now, the Hyksos were responsible for building many pyramids. Some pyramids are natural forming, but the Hyksos tribes were the ones responsible for creating the pyramids. Just on the back of the American dollar, there were foreign rulers of Egypt during the second intermediate pyramid. So did the Egyptians kill the Jews, the Semites, or did the Semites kill? The real story is that they killed the firstborn men, the Egyptian boys. Not the other way around, as people would think. Exactly those foreign rulers is not known, but is assumed they were Asiatics. The Egyptian term for Hyksos merely means rulers of foreign lands. And who are the Jews? The rulers of foreign lands. It was once thought that foreign rule in Egypt would have necessarily entailed a violent overthrow, but instead an appearance of a peaceful takeover. More likely, members of these foreigners slowly increased in the Delta region and became a powerful political force. And just like they did in the Americas and in Europe, they took over, right? It was nice and peaceful transition. That's what they did. Look at what's happening to our countries, just like what happened to Egypt. And Egypt, the white Egypt, got browned out. And what are they doing to us? Browning us out. They've been always doing this. Now, fact is, there are only 4 races originally on this planet. Okay? Yellow, red, white, and black. All others are 2 or 3 or more mixed races. India was browned out. India was white. These Semites with their black slaves came in and then did the same thing. Did the opposite. Oh, well, the blacks must have rights and blah, 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 after they let their slaves go and they changed things. And the white cultures of India and Egypt all peace and love and coexist, brainwashed in their minds, and the white races of those regions were genocided by browning out. Understand? Under the rule of Hyksos, the continuity of the Egyptian culture and ritual was presented, indicating that these foreign kings have become fully Egyptianized. Add a large amount of B gene to the upper class Egyptian gene pool. Yeah, and the same thing in our areas, in our countries. They're what? They're upper class. They're the CEOs of corporations, of the banks, controllers of the politicians and all that. We have foreign rulers ruling our countries, just like back then in Egypt. Same scenario they play out all the time throughout history, chasing every white country down. Those pharaohs, those kings, they're all Semites, they're all Mongolians. They're the ones who practiced magic and all that, not the whites. Africa, in general, independent of any racial categorization, has a higher incidence of Group B than Europe or the Middle East. Whether this is a result of intermingling of the original B gene pool is unknown. However, it does imply that the links between ancient Egypt and sub-Saharan Africa are deeper, older than generally recognized. Yes. The blood group characteristics of the various Jewish populations have long been of interest to anthropologists. As a general rule, regardless of their nationality or race, there is a trend towards higher and average rates of blood group B. The Ashkenazims of Eastern Europe, which are Europeans who took up the Jewish religion, who eventually did marry Semitic Jews, and got the B blood too, through marriage, through the fornication, and their kids got B blood. The Ashkenazim of Eastern Europe and the Sephardims. Now the Sephardims are the real culprits behind the New World Order. They are your Chinese agents. Sephardims of the Middle East and Africa, the two major sects, share high rates of Group B blood and bear no discernible differences. Babylonian Jews differ considerably from the present-day Arab population of Iraq in that they have a high frequency of overall of Group A and even higher frequency of Group B. So, Group A is generally European blood. Group B is Semitic blood, which is, I'll tell you what it is. It's originally Chinese, Han Chinese blood. It's where it comes from. We'll continue here. Hang on. The Jews of the Tafilat oasis in Morocco, an ancient community now dispersed, also had high frequency of the gene for Group B blood, around 29% of the total society. The Karaite, who have an extraordinarily high rate of B blood, are members of a Jewish sect founded in Babylonia in the 8th century AD. A singular community of Karaites continues to exist in Lithuania, and they are known to have migrated as a body from the Crimea. The Karaites consider themselves Jews by religion only, not by race. They took up the religion. To modern anthropologists, blood group B continues to this day to be an Eastern blood group. It is found high numbers among Asians such as the Chinese, Indians, and Siberians. While it originally comes from the Chinese, raped and plundered the lands and introduced group B blood to these people who were once white. In Europe, Group B is more frequently found in Hungarians, Russians, Poles, and other Eastern Europeans, and is not found in large numbers among Western Europeans. Among pre-Neolithic peoples such as the Basques and Amerindians, Group B is practically non-existent. So back to Russia, Poland, and Hungary. Let's take Hungary for example. Attila the Hun. He was a Mongolian. He invaded Hungary. He's the one his army who raped all the victims and gave the children B blood. That's why the high frequency of the B blood came about. in Hungary, Russia, and southern Poland, and other Eastern European nations. All of the ABO blood groups B shows the most clearly defined geographic distribution, stretching as the Great Belt across the Eurasian plains and down to the Indian subcontinent. Blood group B is found in increased numbers from Japan, Mongolia, China, and India up to the Ural Mountains. From there westward, the percentages fall until a low is reached at the extreme western end of Europe. Blood group B is distinctively non-Indo-European blood type. Like I said before, it's not blood A. In Europe, only 2 areas with a high rate of blood B appear, one among the group of non-Indo-European peoples known as the Finno-Ugrics, as the Hungarians and the Finnish. The other among the Central Slavic, Czechs, Southern Poles, Northern Serbs. The Viking invaders may also have had a relatively high percentage of B gene, since many of the towns of Britain and Western Europe that are linked to the coast by internal lines of communication, such as large rivers, have proportional amount of group B when compared to surrounding territories, because those territories were invaded. Once again, the small numbers of group B in Old and Western Europeans represent Western migration by Asian nomadic people. This is most clearly seen in the easternmost Western Europeans. The Germans and Austrians, who have an unexpectedly high incidence of blood group B blood compared to their Western neighbors. The highest frequency of group B in Germans occur in the area around the upper and middle Elbe River, an important natural boundary between civilization and barbarism in ancient Middle times. Modern subcontinental Indians, a Caucasian people, have some of the highest frequencies of blood group B in the world. Interestingly, among Asiatics, they and the Japanese are the only areas that shows high frequencies of blood group A. The northern Chinese and Koreans have high rates of B blood and lower rates of group B. And these B-blooded Chinese, the Han Chinese, are the ones who are killing the other Chinese, because of that pure yellow blood. Nowadays, blood group B accounts for about 10% of the world's population.